next bowl game is next Tuesday, December the 17th.
That's the only bowl game, right? This weekend?
That's the only bowl game on Saturday.
Yeah, right.
The FBS
this one's on Tuesday. Yeah.
The only FBS bowl game on Saturday. Yeah, it is proximity. It is proximity to obviously a much closer venue for South Alabama. But how's South Alabama going to get excited? Like, they don't even get to travel out of their own state to play Western Michigan, a mid-tier MAC team. You know, there's been situations
there's exactly
flat in that kind of situation. They don't get to travel. They're playing a team that's not exactly going to excite them and be enthusiastic about it. So that's the concern. It's not just the matchups anymore, especially with these early bowl games. It's intangibles. It's motivation. You know, is South Alabama kids going to get fired up for not really moving much, you know, far, not going to a sunny destination or anything? You're just there in Alabama against, you know, like I said, middle of the pack MAC team, Western Michigan. That remains to be seen. All right, Tuesday, December 17th, Frisco Bowl. This is, of course, in Frisco, Texas, Toyota Stadium. Memphis and West Virginia. Memphis 2-point favorites, 56.5 the total in this game. Some movement on toward Memphis because West Virginia opened 1.5-point favorites. And, of course, Neil Brown's firing is a big reason why. You got an interim makeshift coaching staff likely going to coach this bowl game for West Virginia. And that's usually a bet against situation. You know, not something you really want to bet on with so much influx going on. When coaches get fired, players transfer out as well. That is something you got to keep an eye on here for West Virginia. Believe me, especially now with the transfer portal in play, coach firings at the end of the year are not exactly things that I'm rushing to bet on in bowl games for those teams that are affected by them. And that's why I'd be reluctant at the moment, at least, until I gain more information of who's playing and who's in and who's out, to take West Virginia, especially, like I said, with a makeshift coaching staff. Because as we always said, and I remember the late, great Dave Malinsky saying this for years, listening to him, when the coaches that are the interim coaches, the interim coaching staff after the head coach gets fired with the team and they've got to coach the bowl game, what is their focus? Is it preparing for Memphis, or is it getting their resumes prepared and polished for their next opportunity job-wise? That's what you have to look at in these situations. And that's why it's not always a thing I like doing. And that's betting teams in bowl season when they just fired their head coach. And right now they got an interim coaching staff taking over the reins. Memphis, meanwhile, you know, not a team I've loved by any stretch of the imagination this season. I mean, we've talked about this for years. I'm not a big fan of their head coach, Ryan Silverfield. But I will say this about Memphis. Could argue that their two best performances in quite some time were the last two games where they beat the hell out of UAB, which isn't saying much because UAB's had a dreadful year. And then Tulane was the very impressive win, outright as double-digit dogs, beating the Green Wave 34-24 and really crushing Tulane's playoff hopes. And that win over Tulane forced Tulane to have to go to West Point to play Army for the AAC championship game instead of Army going to Tulane for it. So that ended up being a costly loss for Tulane, a big win, almost a spoiler type win for Memphis. We like, obviously, their offense. What was really good about that game against Tulane was the up and down run game with Mario Anderson got going for Tulane in that game. We'll see if it can have success here against West Virginia. The West Virginia team defensively obviously had tons of issues during the year, 411 total yards per game allowed. They were ripped in the secondary, which obviously Seth Hennigan is the type of quarterback that can do some damage throwing the football against a team that just surrendered huge big plays all season long against the pass. When you've got Rock Taylor leading them at the receiver spot, certainly could create some big plays. I definitely understand the movement to Memphis. I think anything less than 3, I would be looking to take Memphis here. I wouldn't want to lay points with them. They're not a lay points with team, Memphis, but as long as they stay below this key number of 3, I think it's Memphis or pass here in this bowl game. What do you think here, C-Mac, Frisco Bowl?
Yeah, because there's just a ton of question marks with this West Virginia program that, you know, until who they're going to hire at head coach, it's always like this lull period, and everyone, wants to sign their resume and get it all and get a job somewhere in the end. And this West Virginia team just wasn't good all year. They weren't good, especially defensively. And it was time for Brown to go. He had been in the hot seat basically a couple of years and really this year. And I'm glad he got out of there too. It was time for a change. And they got beat. Ken Hennigan, you meant the secondary was awful. This team was one of the worst in the country. I think Hennigan can have some success. You know what? He was so great in that Tulane game, just efficient. Like Mario Anderson got going, but he's like, forget that game here. Savannah, here 22 of 29, 218, 2 touchdowns. Seth Hennigan does that. Bingo. They're winning this game. I thought the Memphis defense played better all year. I didn't want to lay points with them. We talk about constantly when they play these bad teams, don't lay 2 touchdowns, blah, 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 and then catch them as the dog. They're short favorites here. They basically just have to win the game. I'm leaning that way because they're going to lose a lot. Hennigan, this is his swan song. Anderson, a bunch of the defense, they're going to have to deal with a bunch after this game. And even a few guys leaving beforehand. I mean, everything's kind of happening right now with these guys. It opens up right now, the transfer, as we're on right now. So, and then goes on throughout the week. So pay attention to that. But yeah, I lead Memphis here too. Frisco in Texas. I think they can win this.
Chad Scott, the offensive coordinator, is the interim head coach right now for West Virginia here in this bowl game. But again, is he going to be retained by whoever takes over? Probably not. He's thinking about where am I working next? Where am I going to go? That's the thing. That's why it's difficult to bet on the teams with the makeshift coaching staff in the bowl game, because I can guarantee you these coaches are thinking more about, okay, where's my next employment going to be? Where's my family going to move to? Where am I going after this? Rather than, we're working all day, all night preparing for Memphis. You know what I mean? I mean, that's human nature. Yeah.
And just watch everything. Who's going to quarterback here for West Virginia? Because that's been back and forth. Or one of these guys going to leave. So
I thought Garrett Green might go in the transfer portal.
So did I, but
hasn't happened yet. But it could. Doesn't mean it won't. It still could.
Exactly. Yeah. So watch that. Just keep an eye out on that for this game.
And we also have to kind of predict where the line is going to go. And my guess is it still could move further, especially if we see some transfer portal movement, which I think is possible, especially when they officially announce who the guy is going to be as head coach for West Virginia. We could really see, and it could be Rich Rod. I'm hearing rumblings that Rich Rod's in the discussion to coach West Virginia for a second stint.
Crazy.
So what's old might be new again in Morgantown. So keep an eye on that. But might be a reunion there with Rich Rodriguez.